I would like to, well, not call to the table, but still give the floor to Dr. Sean McCarthy, who is with us behind the cameras. He watches us, and hopefully we will also see him. So basically, behind the joke, we have the pleasure to have here as well, even if online, Dr. Sean McCarthy, who defines himself as a researcher, research manager, and the director of the Hyperion Ltd. From Ireland. And now he's there, wow. So a bit of sorry for being a bit late with the program, but I wouldn't take more introduction to him, but thank you very much again for being here. And I'm sure that everybody will join this wonderful presentation since he has a great experience how to support researchers and how to support research offices in setting up excellent services and writing excellent proposals. So Sean, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I really wish I was there. Hi, Nick, Simon, Jan, my friends are there. Now, what I'm going to talk about is the profile of research support offices in organizations with high success rates. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I've given courses in over 300 European research centers and universities, and in the top 100 research organizations in Horizon 2020, I give courses with Sylvia in 74 of the top 100. So what I'm talking about is my own experience. I like this study that's going on, the RAP study, to collect this kind of factual information. Now, I heard a couple of really important words today. I listened to the whole conference, well done, but I heard the word confidence. People need more confidence. And the other words I heard is limited resources. So what I want to show you is how some research organizations provide what I call smart support. It's not about having big groups of people or people working 24 hours a day. A lot of it is very, very, very cleverly done. So I hope I can share some of those ideas with you. Now, I'm in Cork. I wish I was in Budapest. And you're down there on the other side. So just to show you geographically where we're located. Now, on the 17th of February, I gave a talk to your group on the profile of organizations with high success rates. So I'm just going to start with one slide on that. But if you analyze the organizations with high success rates, their support offices are designed in a very, very clever way. The first thing they realize is that there's different levels of EU experience. They realize that there are different programs with different needs for support, and there are different roles in a project, and whether you're coordinator or partner makes a big difference. And then they realize there are different stages in the life cycle of the program. So those four things allow you to develop. So if you're an individual support staff, you have to start thinking like this. And the last section is just a summary of the kind of models that we see around Europe. And I think this is going to be expanded with the project that Nick described. So I hope you get some ideas from the presentation. Now, organizations that are successful know one very important fact. That success in Horizon Europe is about winning individual projects. It's like the Olympics. It's not saying that that your Hungary will get so many medals. No, each medal has to be won on their own merit. Now, if you analyze the individual scientists who are very, very successful, they have a kind of a formula. Now, there's no surprise here that the people that win consistently have excellent science, excellent ideas, and excellent partners. That's the job of the scientist, not the support staff. The other characteristic is they understand the rules, but it's not the scientist understands the rules, it's the support staff. So scientists don't waste their time learning the rules because that's a big job in itself. But there's a big box in the middle that some of the clever people have mastered. Now, this isn't a natural skill. This is a skill you have to learn. They are brilliant at converting an excellent idea into a competitive proposal. And we know lots of people with brilliant ideas, they just can't get it on paper. Now, that's what I've spent the last 25 years doing around Europe. But within your organizations, can you see the two levels of support? There's one support on the rules, and there's one support on converting the idea into a competitive proposal. So I want to look at the last two boxes there to see how organizations approach this. Now, I have a slide. I haven't used it many years, but I thought this was a good occasion to do it. These are two friends of mine, actually, so there's no copyright problems here. I talk about the caddy model. Now, I don't play a lot of golf, but the caddy is the person that goes around the course with the golfer. Now, what does the caddy actually do? Now, they do different things. For the lazy golfers, they're the guy that carries the bag. And that's what a lot of young people earn pocket money doing. But if you're a learner, if you're just learning the game, they're there to make sure you learn the rules. Now, you might think European rules are complex. Wait till you get into the golf rules and learning the techniques of playing the game. So sometimes the caddy helps you there. But for experienced people, the caddy identifies their weaknesses and improves their skills. But why does Tiger Woods and all these top elite golfers, why do they have a caddy? Surely they know all these things. The caddy knows the course. In other words, you might be a brilliant golfer, but if you don't know where the water is or the trees are or what's around the next corner, you might be a brilliant golfer. And I see that this is one of the biggest skills that the support staff, they know the course of Horizon Europe. So if we take that model here, and before I leave it, there's one point that success in golf depends on the skill of the golfer. So it's like science. We can have a brilliant support, but if the scientist doesn't do their job, all the support goes down the drain. So I think that's an important message to remember. So if you look at the research organizations and universities that have a small support staff, they divide their scientists into all of these categories. Now, what do they all need? So you have the EU active, potential winners. Now, I've divided newcomers into total beginners, young researchers, and experienced scientists who are totally new to Horizon Europe. And I've, of course, 80% of the people that we categorize as not interested. So what kind of support they need? They all need support on finance, legal, forums, the portal, and identifying opportunities. So when Horizon Europe was launched, they all need that support. But beginners, they want training courses, basic training courses on how to use the portal. And I think this is the type of courses that some of you are giving. Now, senior people want one-to-one support, especially ERC. They're not going to go to a workshop. So when you're tailoring your ERC support, it's a different type of support than anything else. Now, potential winners, these are people that are nearly there. They put in a proposal, it wasn't accepted or whatever. They want you to identify their weaknesses and coach them for success. Now, those people are the ones that need lots and lots of attention. But what about the EU active, people that know the whole business? They want up-to-date information and they want something called strategic planning. And I'll show you what that means. So can you see that you might have a small staff, but you're not giving everybody the same service? Now, what about the not interested? There is something you can do for those. Continuously tell them about the success stories of Horizon Europe and let them see the visible benefits of speaking at conferences and so on. Now, but talking about Brussels bureaucracy, that only confirms their doubts about the system. So you should only be talking about the positive benefits of projects. And you'll see some of these people being won over. So in business, this is called customer relationship management, that you tailor your service to your different customers. So I hope you like that. There's many years gone into that particular slide. So in other words, if you're designing a support office, you have to divide the support into supporting the rules and supporting the science. And the first type of support, I call this level 1, the most important one, is what most of you do, the legal and financial rules. And we heard some of the presenters looking at that today. And for beginners, they want to know about the portal, identifying the opportunity, filling in the forms. But what about organizations that are very, very successful? Of course, they offer level 1 support and level 2, but they go to the next level. And it's all about efficiency, having templates, having guidelines. And there are lots of guidelines out there now produced by the national contact points, having sample proposals. But what we specialize in is level 4. Now, very few organizations have got to this level. Small groups have got to it. This is strategic planning. And I spoke about this the last day that I gave the talk about analyzing the evaluation process, understanding the background to the topics and so on. So I'm going to give you level 5. There's even a level 5, but I'll have to present it in another way. So in other words, when you're presenting your services to your bosses, this is a good way of explaining why you're developing your services along these particular lines. Now, there are different programs in Europe. I'm going to focus on Horizon Europe, but the 27 member states of the European Union, they come together and they identify areas where they cooperate. For example, they cooperate on research and innovation, and we have Horizon Europe. There's another program called InvestEU. We all know about Erasmus, Digital Europe, and you know there are over 30 different European programs. Now, there's an important message in that slide that whenever you see a program, it's there to support a policy, and a policy is an agreement between the 27 countries. So if you're advising somebody on Horizon Europe, you have to know the policies behind it. And the other thing that was mentioned this morning was about the European partnerships, having more links between national and European funding. So let's look at Horizon Europe. The policy behind Pillar 1 is to make Europe a leader in science. So if you're advising somebody on ERC, Marie Curie, this is all about scientific leadership. Pillar 2 is different. Pillar 2 is about using science to address a global challenge. And they've divided Europe, Pillar 2, into 6 clusters, as they call them. So in Pillar 2, science is a tool to do something. So that's why impact is an important evaluation criteria. Now, something major has happened since Horizon Europe was launched, and that was COVID. COVID demonstrated that you can use science to tackle a global challenge. So all over Horizon Europe, the expectation of impact is high. So in Pillar 2, we have to begin the proposal with the impact and then explain the science. Pillar 3 is different. Look at all the technologies in the room today. They're all non-European. So Europe is importing all these technologies. So Pillar 3 has a different policy. It's about producing European companies that export technologies. And then there's, of course, getting your countries more involved in the program. So can you see that behind every program, there's a policy? So if you don't read the policies, which are in the work programs, you can't advise the people. Now, another problem is that Pillar 1 is called a bottom-up program. And Pillar 3 is called a bottom-up program. That means the scientist is free to submit anything they like, but they're not free. You can't submit the same idea to Marie Curie and ERC because there's a different policy behind ERC and a different policy behind Marie Curie. Now, this is so critical. In bottom-up programs, the policies define the evaluation criteria. So if you're advising somebody on a bottom-up program, you first have to see what are the policies behind Marie Curie, why are the evaluation criteria like this? And so when you're advising somebody, you're bringing all this extra information to the table, and all this information is in the work programs. Pillar 2 is different. Pillar 2 is divided into 6 different clusters, and the clusters are divided into hundreds of topics. So if you look at the health cluster, there's a topic on mental health, and that topic is there to address a specific European policy on mental health. So if you're advising somebody on Pillar 2, you need to ask them, what's the background to the topic? You're not expected to know it, but you're expected to transfer that question to the scientist to know, how can you write a proposal in Pillar 2 if you don't know the background to the topic? So can you see that it's not good enough to know the program, you must know the background to the program and the structures. So again here, it's not the same advice to each individual pillar. Now, in a project, we saw that we need partners. Now, in Horizon Europe, a partner is an organization, it's not a person. And we can see that in most of Horizon Europe, you need to be part of a consortium. In fact, about 80% of the funding is consortium, 20% is about single. So ERC and EIC is nearly 20% of the funding. So in other words, if you're supporting a scientist, say in Pillar 2, we can see that all proposals are submitted electronically. And if there are 10 organizations in the consortium, we saw Nick presenting the consortium this morning. So IARMA could be the coordinator or whatever. So, and we always divide the coordinator organization into the scientific coordinator and the proposal manager. Now, if your organization is coordinating a proposal, they need maximum support. Now, I know some of the top universities in Europe, if they're coordinating a proposal, there's a special package of support. They get maximum attention, I presume, after ERC. Now, if you're supporting somebody who is a work package leader, now, they don't need as much support because they write maybe 5 or 10 pages, they have to follow the rules. But there's another option. They could be a task leader, where they might only have to write 2 pages, but they still need to understand the rules. So when somebody comes to your office and they said, I'm a work package leader or I'm a minor partner, then you know the work is less. If they arrive in your desk a week before the deadline, no problem. But if they're planning to be a coordinator, that needs a lot of attention. Now, Thomas this morning or earlier talked about a small private university. There is another option. It's called third-party funding. I'm not going to talk about it now, but it's on the following slide. It's where you apply to a funded project to actually get funding. So can you see that what role your scientist has in the project determines what exact service you will apply to them. Now, the last thing you must understand is the life cycle, and I'm only talking about pre-award here. The call comes out, and there are lots of deadlines in April, but those calls came out maybe October, November last year. But the work programs came out maybe 9 months before. The drafts were out 9 months before, and 12 months before that, the policies were debated about what would be in the work program. Now, if you design a support office and somebody arrives at your desk on the week of the deadline saying, can you help me with my proposal? Then all you can provide is level 1 support, legal financial rules. And I think you're welcome to use a slide like this to explain the services that you operate. If somebody arrives saying, we're a partner in a project 2 months before the deadline, plenty time. But if somebody comes to you and says, we're coordinating a project and the deadline is 2 months, I think it's too late. But if somebody arrives at your desk when the call comes out saying, we're planning to coordinate, you can give them a lot of support. Now, that's a very, very traditional approach. But when I visit the centres with high success rates, and I know one of them here in Cork at the moment, the draft work programmes for 2023 came out last Friday. They're already meeting to discuss proposals. The meeting's already started this week. And the earliest, these are the earliest drafts available, and they're already coming together, contacting partners. But if you analyse the people with the highest success rate of all, I know 5 people in Europe that have a 100% success record. They start back here. They participate in expert groups for 3 reasons. 1, to understand the policy behind the Pillar 2 topics, to identify potential partners, and most importantly, to get ideas. So can you see that the people that have high success rates, they don't need big offices. What they do is they plan a long time ahead. Now, ERC, of course, is different because it's bottom-up individual partners. So the cleverness is in how far ahead you plan rather than this last-minute.com thing. So size is not the issue. It's strategic planning ahead that determines success more than the size of the support offices. Now, this is just a summary of different types of offices. I heard some of the questions today asking, and I think in Nick's project and Simon's work, this is going to be further developed. But for my visits to organizations, surprisingly, this is quite common. Everybody does everything. You know, every support person does national, international, EU, and so on. Some bigger offices might have 4 or 5 people, or I know one of them has 8 people totally devoted. But ERC changed everything. ERC has people specifically devoted to ERC, and others have people devoted to individual fellowships. It's becoming more and more popular. This started in the UK, I remember, having pre-award and post-award, but that's very, very common now. Now, more and more we're seeing this model where there's a very small central office. Cork, for example, is like this, and all the faculties then have their own support staff. That works very well, but the key thing is the link between the central office and the local offices. A number of universities have tried this, where they had an external office running, it's being run externally for financial reasons and so on. It works. It's not as popular as you think. A number of success stories have it. And of course, there's the old faithful, there's no support. You know, they just give financial office gives advice. But again, here you can see that there's different models. And I think this is something that's going to come out of the work that Nick is talking about, to come up with kind of templates for that. Now, for those of you that never met me before, what we do is we give training courses on this, and we put all our courses online now. So if anybody is interested in trying out any of these different modules, and we look at newcomers and coordinators. And if any of you want to follow me on LinkedIn, we're putting up a slide every couple of days from the courses. So again, you can just take a QR code from that. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'd love to take any questions that anybody has for me.
So many thanks, Sean, for this wonderful presentation. I'm always enjoying to learn everything that comes from your experience, which are based on the different parts of Europe and how research support works and how researchers start planning and then become successful in Horizon and other programs. So the question is, are there any questions from the audience to Sean? Please don't hesitate to ask it. There is the microphone there, so if you have, please stand up and share it. Yes, just over there. Peringe is arriving, so...
Hi, Jean. I have a question for you. Do you have any, based on your wide experience, any experience as to whether there are advantages or disadvantages as to having an interdisciplinary research support service where the legal and the financial people are also together in the same team as the ones that I think you focus most on in your presentation? Thanks.
Yeah, I think the organisation I'm closest to is University College Cork here, because I'm in Cork, and I was an adjunct professor there up to recently. And in theory, it was, everything is interdisciplinary at the moment, whether it's IT and energy or whether it's humanities and IT and so on. But it's so hard to break away from the local thinking, like we're science, you're humanities, and so on. I cannot name a place that has people that are cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary. The legal people, of course, are everywhere. I see that as a big challenge. And what we did in Cork is each group had to present data, identify the opportunities in Horizon Europe. And what we did in the first time, we had all the health people presenting what they found and which topics were relevant to them. But when we went to the humanities, we also brought in the IT people, and they were blown away about the potential opportunities. But that was more of a coincidence than a plan. But it's quite difficult to do. I can't say I know somebody that does it. But the right way to do it is have these workshops. Now, the secret we found in Cork, and Veronica, you mentioned, you gave a great slide this morning, Veronica Thomas, that Venn diagram of the intentions of the leadership, the motivation of the scientists, and the support. And that's how we saw it working in Cork. When you had the vice rector at the workshop, you had the scientists presenting their strategies or their plans, and you had the support people kind of there. Then this interdisciplinary thing could happen, but it has to come from the involvement of the senior people. Otherwise, just for some reason, people always seem to drift back to their own faculties or whatever. That's not going to happen naturally. That has to be deliberate. And Veronica, your slide is the perfect model for that, the intention of the leadership in that happening. I hope that answers it, because I couldn't pinpoint any place that is doing it systematically.
Thank you very much, Sean, for the answer. Any other question from the audience? Yes, Sinisa, please come to the mic.
Sean, thank you very much for the great presentation. Back to your 6 model slide. The first one, you mentioned that most teams that support researchers are actually generalists. They do all sorts of things. What would you advise as the first step, or the most important step that we should do to support those people? I covered the Western Balkans, and I can design programs to assist such people, some of whom are in this room. What would you say would be the first and the most important step?
I think, yeah. Okay, I would say 2 things. First is basic training. Before, for example, if somebody is looking at ERC or Marie Curie, that person either gets an online course from the national contact points. There's so much stuff there that if somebody's coming to your office, could you please watch that 20-minute video about ERC? Could you watch that Marie Curie? The amount of time that's wasted in training. So the first thing is that if you have a small group, somebody doing everything, understanding the program is the first thing. But the second thing is even more critical, understanding the evaluation process. And again, if you look at Marie Curie, ERC, there are workshops on how the proposals are evaluated. But I would say that for that support office, with the support of the management, to encourage people to become evaluators. If I was setting up a group of people, that's what we would do. But in Cork, when I was doing the work with Cork, the brief I got was I wasn't to add any extra work to the support staff. And so what I promised them is I would add fun to their job. And what they did is I gave the courses, but anybody could give the courses on, say, the opportunities in Horizon Europe. But the scientists then were given an opportunity to present to the vice rector their plan for Horizon Europe. The support staff had nothing to do. And they said it was the most enjoyable work they ever did because the scientists were coming to them asking intelligent questions, not what's our pick number. They were asking, what do you think of this topic? What's the difference between ERC and Marie Curie? And they said it was the people in Cork, and Noreen spoke at the RMA conference. She said those were the best days she came to work because the scientists, in other words, the support staff were becoming facilitators, not doing the heavy lifting and so on. So that's what I would recommend, is how to get the scientists to do the work, how to facilitate and empower is the word people use to do it. And at the RMA conference, Noreen gave a very nice presentation on that whole thing. So with a small office, you can do that's what we call it, smart support. It's not working people 12 hours a day. It's about doing it cleverly. So I hope that kind of summarizes it. But we actually did a talk on that at the RMA conference, which is on, I know, the RMA website still, you know. I hope that helps.
Thank you a lot. Any other question? Actually, we are a bit behind the schedule, so I would like to say thanks again to Sean for being here and also for following all the sessions today.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed.
Yes, indeed.
Just as well as our participants. I would like to wrap up today just very shortly. So what we have learned today, many things basically. First, the importance about professional associations and initiatives which are aiming to build up such associations. Then why it is important to read and do research in research management. Why it is important to see the current community, learn from their needs. And of course, many hot topics that can hopefully support your work when you will be back to your office. And tomorrow, we will start with a kind of different approach because we will have some representatives of policymaking bodies and also research funding bodies. So first, the focus will be on the research and innovation ecosystem of these countries that we are covering, and afterwards we will also initiate a dialogue with these people by showcasing them some examples on the profession and associations and also educational training programs. But of course, in parallel, some other hot topics will be also discussed, such as how to design impact pathway, how to evaluate it, and any cross-cutting issues which are relevant for writing a nice proposal, and some miscellaneous issues as well. So I would like to say a special thanks again to all the speakers today for being here and also having these wonderful presentations. And of course the audience, and I'm very happy to have you all here personally. And I would like to say a special thanks for my colleagues supporting today, and of course tomorrow's program and all the logistic and everything. So I give now the floor to Blanca, my colleague, again to say some practical information with regard to the dinner. So thanks again and see you later.